Nigeria is less than 4%. Actually, it's 2%. So these are some of the things we need to realize. But the problem is any way to solve financing. The government is trying with Credit Corp, but Credit Corp is grossly, grossly underfunded. So, for instance, we as a company have well over 140 ride-hailing drivers who have signed up in writing that they want electric vehicles. Some of them have actually saved up their down payment. Now we are waiting on banks and uh, other organizations to get involved in financing. So this is happening, and we ourselves are actually beginning to aggressively push other areas to get these cars out to people. So the issue of electric vehicles being expensive is, I would like to call it a rumor, because it's a rumor because it's actually not true.
Thank you very much, sir. In fact, on the financing part, one of the things that shocked me recently was I saw the purchase price for a Toyota Urban Cruiser recently, and it was about 58 million. However, on the breakdown, the actual cost of that vehicle, the customs duty and all of that was like 32 million out of the entire 58 million. And it was surprising. Like, this is a new vehicle. We're trying to get people to buy newer vehicles and definitely electric vehicles. So I'm particularly glad that we're having local EV manufacturers, which hopefully will drive down the cost of that. Which of course takes me to my next question. Globally, ride-hailing companies are the ones that would eventually, they're like the early adopters for electric vehicles, right? So, Mr. Adimeji, what are the things that would need to be in place, for drivers who are on a very tight margin, for them to move and consider switching to electric vehicles, either from charging access. I know that Starlink has like a few around around Lagos. I don't know of outside, but I've seen a few of that, to financing and even other things that we probably haven't thought about yet. So.
Thank you. So this is to the government, yes? Okay, beautiful. Key problems, as Dr. Sama said, finance is a key problem, and it's also not just finance, lack of knowledge of finance. The difference between the finance problem and what Dr. Sama said is people not knowing the actual cost. I won't, as a single ride-hailing worker, think about that cost. It's taking care of me and the life. But then again, when I sit down and look back at my past alternative data of the past 2 years, I have a understanding actual finance and user finance. So being able to address the finance, because barrier of entry, thanks to how people pay down or they do higher purchase, either of those two things. That is how ride-hailing guys acquire, is either full down payment or higher purchase. So if there are better access to finance, that would help a whole lot. Do you think drivers don't want to access it? Yes, they do, but they don't have the right education of understanding. Hey, if you're going to grow a business, you need to understand how to deliver shareholder value. And as we know from business, shareholder value is ensuring that you're not using 100% of your investors' money to drive the profit. So being able to ensure access to finance is very, very key. The second is supporting local. I don't know. Okay, so if we look at cities like Morocco, which is like a blueprint for what EV is supposed to look like. I'm saying Africa, not trying to stretch it to China. There is a strong ecosystem for EV. And that is off the back that the environment itself is able to support the adoption. You're thinking about the fact that using it for business, there's access to the parts. It's not like, okay, you have a breakdown and you're waiting and your car is wrecked and you're done, like you're worried about that. So if there are support for incentivizing local manufacturing to ensure that there is access to the things that will keep it running, keep the cars running, keep the sector running, that would go a lot way in catalyzing, educating, and encouraging usage, because it's a journey. People need to be aware, then encouraged and engaged, and then it becomes a thing that we're just sustaining. Look at the issue. I mean, let's dial back to switching from manual to automatic. There were pushback about that change. So it's also that trajectory that we're going to follow. So in summary, finance, we need to do more education about people knowing how to access finance for this, because it's business. And once they understand that, yes, if I do this EV, which would help me drive down my cost of operation and help me save a lot more, and instead of my usual 4 years of paying for a car, I can do that in about 3 years or 2.5 years, and then the rest I'm yielding profits. Then there's a better disposition to it. Finance, then infrastructure. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. So over to you. Generally, we've had challenges with EVs, and when we stretch it a bit further to self-driving cars, because the entire platform behind this is electric, So, given where we are with AI adoption at the moment, what do you think will be the immediate challenges that we're going to experience with AI being infused into the entire EV system, whether it's from route optimization to basic car maintenance, right? Because, for example, if you were coming here and the AI knew that, okay, maybe certain events were happening, it would probably be able to map or chart a better course for you to get here earlier. What are the challenges that you see behind AI integration into the EV systems?
Thank you so very much. This is a great question. For me, I think it would be around the ecosystem of artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence ecosystem in Nigeria. So if, for example, Saglev wants to experiment with maybe things that can move stuffs around within an office space. So move a robot that can move your files from one desk to the other, right? That is a technology that already exists, and it's a simple model that they can import. But the biggest challenge will be, how will they get enough talent in that space locally to support the growth of that particular, and again, maybe you want to look at talent to say talent is now global. I could hire people outside Nigeria to support it. But one thing that we need to do, and I think that the gap for me will be, the technical capacity to be able to launch, the right solutions in the e-mobility space. Again, starting from not necessarily, full-blown self-driving vehicles, but in our factories, can we have the right tools that are helping with, industrialization and manufacturing that are autonomous to an extent? There's a huge opportunity in that space, and I think just being able to find the right people to support as we build local solutions that support that aligns with the resources that we have around and with our demand of the market. It's very important that we make sure that we put the right tools in place to have talent built, again, because the AI story for me, I've always said that I think that the world is probably going to hit AGI by 2030. A lot of people think it's going to be longer. I think by 2030 we're going to hit AGI, and that's just 5 years from now. And if it's just 5 years from now, what are we putting in place locally within the university system, within the tech ecosystem, to build that strong talent? So what the 3MTT is doing is one way to look at it. But the private sector, how deep is that? And for me, I think that's been my biggest challenge.
All right, thank you very much. So if the private sector definitely needs to create more, and then definitely also on the government side. So I'm coming back to you, sir. On the government side in particular, if we're talking about starting from Lagos, of course, what would you say is the biggest thing that the government should invest in at this moment to boost EV production locally? Is it supporting manufacturing, or maybe even building out charging networks for the existing ones, so that over time, as the production ramps up, then there will be places to charge from? Because I'm sure that will be one of the initial considerations that people who want to buy will think of that. So if I'm buying now, where would I charge? And for not everyone wants to install a charging station at home, or maybe they come to the island or the guest stock or the mainland. Like, which one of those two would you say they should start from?
So thank you very much. Your question is actually one that I get often in conferences where you have many schools of thought converge. But your question might assume there is this one most important thing that you have to do. Unfortunately, this question does not have that one answer. There are a number of things you have to do simultaneously to get this to happen. Unfortunately, life is not about doing one thing that will solve 10,000 problems. So this question is as such. Again, you've heard where people say, what comes first? Is it the chicken or the egg? That question is a hard one. But as far as what can the government do, they have to do a number of things simultaneously. One of the first things is you have to understand, if you build it, they will come. Therefore, when you start seeing EV adoption as it is, everybody says that electric vehicles are expensive, but I can assure you we are sold out. So people are buying EVs. And I can tell you, look at the number of ride-hailing drivers I told you we have waiting for EVs, praying for EVs. What that means is the government has to invest simultaneously in electric charging. And the interesting thing with the EV ecosystem is it's actually not costly. In Lagos, there are silos of power where you have actually excess power. You need to be putting chargers there. A level 2 charger is not expensive. It costs you less than $400 to get a level 2 charger. The government should be stepping out and putting these chargers in. Now, that is even for those of us that do four-wheelers. 2 and 3-wheelers is very easy to set up battery swap stations, much more affordable. The government has to understand that they have to do this. So the government has to be willing to invest, and it's not expensive because these things will pay for themselves. Already, I think there's well over 10,000 2 and 3-wheelers out there that are electric. So you have to build it and they will come. The next thing we have to do well is to invest, knowing that, okay, people like me, we have to completely train mechanics to be electric vehicle. So the government has to find a way of putting that in the curriculum of the schools, so that by the time I go there, somebody already knows what a BMS, battery management system is, and these things are easy. Electric vehicles have 40 moving parts versus 4,000, 6,000 moving parts. It's not difficult. And then you have to inform people, let them know. Interestingly, can you imagine how much easier it is to manufacture an electric vehicle compared to your typical car? I think once people know this, they'll start getting the message. So this has to be in place. And then the next thing the government has to do is financing. And by the way, it just turns out that the EV ecosystem is very good at creating jobs. And it doesn't lose you money. Interestingly, because there is the demand. So the government has to invest in these things. And if you're going into any kind of EV ecosystem, you have to understand these are the things that need to be done. Last thing is that it just turns out that the EV ecosystem, I like to call it the EV ecosystem, only 25% of that ecosystem is the car or the two-wheeler and three-wheeler. The rest of it, believe it or not, are all jobs. Think about it. Somebody has to repair this equipment. You need technicians. Somebody has to train the EV technician. Somebody has to create the financial system that is going to take care of charging. Somebody has to create the systems that we are going to use to calibrate and do after-sales service. Somebody has to go and map, because you were talking about AI. As at today, I self-drive my own electric vehicle in Ikoyi, but once I pass Third Mainland Bridge, I'm on my own, right? But if you know what Tesla is doing, is visual computing, right? The truth is that you can actually visually compute and collect the data to start doing self-driving on unmarked roads. So somebody has to invest in this. So there is a lot. The EV ecosystem is all about the jobs, and we have a country where it's about 25% or whatever is people are just waiting for you to come and say, let me teach you something. So the EV ecosystem just happens to be good at doing this. And the government has to understand, okay, we're going to use ecosystems like this to develop our youth and let them. But look, my last advice is, if you're a young person looking for an opportunity, start thinking about after-sales service for electric vehicles. I'm telling you, in the next 2 years, we are not going to have enough people in after-sales service. So if you don't pick anything from this whole conference, start thinking about, how can I do after-sales service for electric vehicles?
Thank you very much, sir. Some of the things that you said resonated with me in particular because, so about 12, 11 years ago, one of the things that Google did for Nigeria was to hire people who were known as map makers. And then they would go around mapping the roads, putting places, and all of those. So they gave us devices. I was one of those who did that. So the reason why Lagos in particular is so detailed was because a large part of us were domiciled in Lagos. But it makes perfect sense because you will build expecting that data would come. So now people just type in destinations. They don't know that a lot of work has gone on the ground. Till now, actually, with the street view cameras, still drive around in places, So, which takes me to data, really. Your work in data definitely speaks to this in a way, because one of the things that happens with Nigeria is that our data is so fragmented. It's all over the place. So you want to do one thing and then every single agency wants to collect the same data that you gave how many years ago, and down to locations and all of that. What would be the best way, for example, that AI in this instance would play in making sure that, yes, all of those data that exist beyond just connecting to APIs, we can bring them together and say, okay, fine, this location is here. Think Google Map versus OpenStreetMap, for example. If you're using Uber, it would give you a different thing. If you're using Bolt, it will give you a different thing because they are using different map protocols, but certain addresses will remain the same. With AI, we can bring those together. How would that play out over the next few years? And of course, getting to the AGI that you mentioned.
Yeah, thanks so very much. Great question around artificial intelligence. And I think it has to also do again with what we're building with that system, with the ecosystem now. And what I mean by AKI ecosystem is, so if you have different map protocols, that are effective in Nigeria with different details or different information, you need the right set of people to build the right agent on top of that we can layer on those, that can make the experience seamless from Google Maps to, say, maybe Open Maps or something now, right? So again, for me, like what he said, if we have this information that AGI is going to come by in like 5 years, what are we doing now to locally, equip the people that are meant to build those solutions? And there are several ways to eat this elephant, one bite at a time. One of it is focusing on the grassroots, AI developers now. The other one is also investing in the right infrastructure. So are we creating AI labs where people with skills can not only come and learn to build the right agents for our local consumption, maybe what we can also export to the rest of West Africa, but also to build something that we can project into the near future. So for me, it's about that plan. What plan are we putting in place now? And I think that if we can get right, the right plan, data science, working with other people in the space to bring talents together, train them, build designated AI labs, maybe funded by government or private sector or jointly, we can start to build that software ecosystem that can easily build the right agents, for mobility, either for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, because there are several applications, several system applications that we can actually, that exists today. I invest, and the last 1 year, we've also pushed at least 2 notable AI-driven solutions in mobility that we didn't take, and we've just said, let's visit again in like 6 months, 8 months. But it's fascinating. And these guys are not building for even the four-wheelers, they're building for the two-wheelers, for the kekes and the bikes is what they're building on. It's amazing what can be achieved if we really decide to invest in.
Thank you very much, sir. Still on data generally, InDrive has access to rich mobility data. I can imagine in terms of routes, times, cost. Given all of that data, what will be the best categories of EV that you think would take off, depending on what you've seen in terms of patterns in Lagos and then across the country?
I mean, I won't base the answer on internal because this is an ecosystem question. The easiest is the one with the lowest barrier of entry that would encourage or catalyze, and that would be the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers, because first, most times they're usually for economic activities, right? And as we've seen, it's easy first to acquire. Barrier of entry in terms of cost is low for the two-wheelers and three-wheelers. They address a mass audience of low income earners and address the last mile need for them. So the impact will be felt real quickly and then increase adoption or awareness of it. Then for the infrastructure, it's also very easy to set up across that point. So by the time you see that, the balance or the scale or the difference between the ICE for two-wheelers and three-wheelers is starting to move from like 90 to 10 to like 40 to 60. It has potential to impact the general ecosystem. So easily, the easiest one would be the two-wheelers and three-wheelers because of those that they impact. For ride-hailing, the likelihood that it's a no-brainer, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of the bold and not just individual investors. Individual buyers will find it hard to make sense of it. But for fleets, for example, it's a no-brainer that they will. The only question that, for example, in some fleet conversations that we've had is not being able to model what the after use cost is. So when you're modeling for your projection, I'm doing X amount in year 1, X amount in year 2. After depreciation over a couple of years, what is the cost of, what's the second-hand value, so that I can model it and know that, even if I decide to change, I'm still going to get X amount of money. That has not been able to answer. I don't have the answer yet. Maybe Dr. Sam can help. But then again, once those knowledge are out there, and there is more activity at that lower level of two-wheeler and three-wheelers, it will really catalyze the space real fast.
Okay, so if you have questions, please be getting them ready while he answers my next question. So, sir, you've mentioned that, in the next 2 years, people should be focusing on after-sales service, but the entire ecosystem is a bit bigger than that. Beyond after-sales service, what are the things that you think both individuals and then companies and then government should focus on within the next couple of years within the EV ecosystem, sir? Dr. Sam. Oh, okay. So you've mentioned that after sales service is going to grow within the next 2 years. So beyond that, what are the other parts within the EV ecosystem that you think individuals, companies, and then governments should focus on?
I think other than after sales service, that's a no-brainer. Because as I speak to you, the rate at which electric vehicles are not only coming in, but also being acquired is interesting. So if you want an area, that's one area you want to look at. The other area we individuals need to focus on is charging, because you cannot use petrol to power most EVs. There are some EVs that can use a little bit of petrol, the extended range, to actually power the battery. So naturally, if you're an individual, I don't think it's time yet to put your funds, but you need to keep an eye on charging, especially if you have access to a public area, high density. You may want to look at battery swaps for 2- and 3-wheelers. So you need to keep an eye on that ecosystem. Then fintech. Those who have some interest in fintech, somebody is going to process the payments for everything we do in this ecosystem. Somebody is going to process the AI features. Somebody is going to process the systems that are going to secure, particularly when we have these EVs, we're going to need facial recognition and all that when crime. I think this is an area that you're going to be interested in. So, individuals. Now, as for government, where should you invest? You need to hit all these areas equally. You need to invest. There's no reason why middle school that would be GSS 3. I don't know if that still exists. You are not already introducing them to computer systems and data. Because this is going to help them. That's one area the government needs to. Then the government needs to understand that employed people are the people that pay taxes. And every dollar you invest in getting people jobs will always give you at least another dollar in revenue. It's either that person now has money to go to a restaurant, they have money to eat, they even have money to call Uber or InDrive to come and carry me somewhere. That is revenue. So somebody needs to talk to our government about this. So this is area that they need to invest. It's not just about focusing, and let me tell you, the digital economy and things like e-mobility are going to be areas where they need to. People are not necessarily taking it serious, but I can tell you that in ride-hailing worldwide, nobody, and my brother here can assure you that nobody is thinking about using internal combustion engine vehicles anymore. Am I right? Except us. So, why is the government not really looking at investing in this but again, I'm also one person that doesn't believe all of this is the responsibility of the government. The government has enough of its headache. It is entrepreneurs like yourself and myself, that are going to do this, okay? If you are expecting the government to boost e-mobility, forget it. Actually, you don't even want the government. They are not good historically at doing these things. It is you and I, the little guy that has saved some little money to maybe start, a mobile charging, okay? If you have an area where you see a lot of ride-hailing drivers congregate, and he knows his drivers tend to congregate in some places, and now you have a way of doing mobile charging, you are in play. So, these are areas, but what I love about the EV ecosystem, it is a jobs ecosystem. Just put that in mind, and time will bear that out.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions, please? One question. No question. Oh, okay. So that we can let this set for the game.
Like, I'm not sure if all the boring enough. Okay. I understand the part where you said that the structuring or like the funding or the cost that goes into producing the e-vehicles are not so expensive as we think. It's relative, okay. Okay. So I was going to ask from the perspective of the fact that you said it's a job ecosystem, like the entire unit, and the fact that commuting to transportation is something that's of like major concern for us, like in Lagos, how we move around and whatnot, and what individuals should focus on if they're interested in getting like vehicles to move around, commute, and also like still get, is it like a good investment to go into that, coupled with the fact that we have like ride-hailing platforms where they can earn additional money, or even like go into like urban entrepreneurship with that. Is e-vehicles like something they should also consider with the job ecosystem you mentioned?
Okay, so your question, interestingly, is like 10 questions in one. So saglev.com, reach out to us. We will answer all these questions. But quickly, let me clarify. Of course, electric vehicles have a higher upfront cost, but over years, the average electric vehicle should last you 15 to 20 years. It may be different in the 2 and 3 wheeler space, but even longer than an internal combustion engine vehicle will last you. So having said that, the cost of production of an EV is less than an ICE. Very simple. 50 moving parts versus 1,200 moving parts. An EV doesn't have transmission, doesn't even have a real engine, no oil change, no exhaust, none of that. So from that, however, people are beginning to hear this question: manufacturing, is it going to drop the cost of EVs? Yes and no. Yes, on the long term, when we start manufacturing a lot of them. But for now, look, the cost of a semi-knockdown is not much lower than the cost of the whole vehicle. However, the fact that I'm manufacturing them here and I have an OEM agreement means that I'm providing jobs, means that I'm doing other things. When you are bringing Tokumbo in, all you are doing is you are just outsourcing the jobs of these young men and women to China. That is what you're doing. And it's not fair to them. So this is, but yes, on the long run, first of all, we need to learn how to manufacture. I mean, for God's sake, Saglev is the only company that is actually assembling only electric vehicles, and we insist on assembling. Now, there are over 60 people with the same automotive assembly license I have, and we're the only ones doing it. So you can see how, and this is the same country where 700,000 plus vehicles are imported into this country every year. 500,000 of them are used, and only 10,000 of them are assembled in Nigeria. So can you imagine if the government says that, okay, you must assemble it here, end of story. These are your jobs, and the youth need to say that you support this and let that happen. But it's only a matter of time. You have the Green Mobility Bill. Please read up on this. This is going to happen. But so her question is very complex, but again, saglev.com, put your question in, we monitor, we'll get and we will revert back to you.
Thank you very much, sir. So one final word from you, Mr. Hatimich.
I mean, seasons come, seasons go. Change is very constant, and we should be ready for it. This is not, as I was sharing at our workshop, it's usually a thing of, do you want to be the first mice or the second mouse or the early bird that gets the worm? In this case of green mobility, it's a case of the early bird, because as you would have seen, data is key. The data you're able to get from getting into it, either as a user, either as an investor, either as an operator or what have you, even the government get you way ahead of the competition, because the resources are limited, the opportunities are endless. So it's very important that everyone gets on it as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Autonomous driving is possible. If we want to ever get there, we need to start now. And the second thing is data related to. We need to start to open up information, data that relates to the mobility space generally, because the more innovators know what the challenges are, the easier it then becomes for them to know where they want to plug in and play. So again, bringing transparency to the mobility space generally, so that we can then know how to tackle e-mobility is very crucial.
Thanks, sir.
So final thoughts. I think it's important for people to understand the electric mobility space is an ecosystem. There are many ways you can tap in. So just remember that you can tap in many parts of it. Then final thoughts. I think there's a lot the government can do, but I believe that it's not just an all of government thing. I was telling people that you can get an electric vehicle and get 3 guys who are unemployed to use it. And I know this concept, he and I, we've talked about different things. The electric vehicle doesn't care. As long as you put a charge in it, it's going to drive. So one guy drives in the morning, and then guess what in Lagos? When do people go to clubs? At night. My brother, let the morning guy go and sleep. You will start carrying people from clubs. So, the future is bright. You have to be prepared. And right now I'm looking at a situation where 3 guys to 1 EV. It is still better for them to get a job, get something, get them off the streets. So the opportunities are there. It's just my first thought. Keep your eyes open, keep your mind open, and the opportunities are there.
Thank you very much, everyone. We definitely had a great time. I'm sure you all had a great time, right? And you learned definitely plenty of things. What? Yes, we're done. I can't hear you. All right. So thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, sir. Okay.